Picture this. It's 2:30 in the morning. You're standing alone in triangular field at Gettysburg, and your camera just died. Again, this is the third piece of equipment that failed you in the last 10 minutes. There's not another soul for miles around. But you're not alone. Something is moving through the mist ahead of you, something that shouldn't be there. This scenario plays out regularly at Gettysburg. Modern technology mysteriously fails. Visitors report unexplained encounters, and even federal agencies quietly acknowledge that something unusual is happening at these sites. Welcome to The Common Historian, where we explore the stories that textbooks don't tell you. I'm your host, Jeremy, and today we're investigating a question that might make some historians uncomfortable. What happens when the dead refuse to leave the battlefield? Over the next 30 minutes, we'll visit four of the world's most documented paranormal hotspots, places where park rangers whisper about things they've seen, where federal agencies quietly acknowledge unexplained phenomena, and where tourists leave with stories they struggle to believe themselves. These aren't campfire tales or urban legends. These are documented encounters at sites where human trauma reached unimaginable levels, where the very ground seems to remember the violence it witnessed. From a Baltimore school class that heard Irish battle cries echoing across a Maryland field, to a tour group in Scotland that watched ghostly Highland warriors charge through the morning mist. These stories make us question what we think we know about life, death, and the space between. So turn off the lights and join me as we explore haunted battlefields where history refuses to rest in peace. Our first stop takes us to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, site of the Civil War's bloodiest battle. Over 3 days in July 1863, more than 50,000 men were killed, wounded, or reported missing. The scale of death was so immense that bodies covered the battlefield like fallen leaves. What makes Gettysburg unique isn't just its death toll, it's the volume of documented paranormal encounters that began almost immediately after the guns fell silent. Mark Nesbitt, former Park Service ranger and author of several books on Gettysburg ghosts, discovered that the first ghost stories tied to the battle occurred on the very night of July 1st, 1863, while the battle was still raging. As the Union Army's Fifth Corps marched into Gettysburg in darkness, soldiers reported seeing mysterious horsemen ahead of them. The figure would appear and disappear, but witnesses clearly saw he wore a Revolutionary War uniform. Many believed it was the ghost of George Washington himself, guiding the Union forces. But it's location where the heaviest fighting occurred that remains the most active haunted today. Take Devil's Den, a rocky outcrop where Confederate sharpshooters used the boulders for cover. This area has become a hotspot for camera malfunctions, mysterious figures appearing in photographs, and visitors hearing distant gunfire that has no earthly source. One of the most frequently reported spirits here is known as Helpful Hippie, a evil young man, always described as barefoot and wearing shabby clothes and a floppy hat. He approaches visitors and tells them, "What you are looking for is over there," pointing towards Plum Run Creek before vanishing completely. At Little Round Top, site of some of the fiercest fighting, visitors report seeing full-bodied apparitions of soldiers in both Union and Confederate uniforms. These aren't reenactors. When witnesses turn for their second look, the figures had vanished entirely. Perhaps the most chilling location is Triangular Field. Visitors report seeing vapor like apparitions of Confederate sharpshooters moving among the rocks, hearing disembodied rebel yells echoing across the field, and witnessing impressions of bodies in the grass where soldiers once fell. But here's what makes these accounts particularly compelling. Modern technology refuses to function properly at Triangular Field. No matter how advanced the camera equipment, it simply will not work in this location, as if the trauma embedded in the very soil interferes with our modern world. The sounds of battle continue to echo through time. Park rangers and visitors regularly report hearing phantom drum beats, distant musket fire, and anguished cries of wounded soldiers, sounds that seem to emerge from the very earth itself. Our next battlefield takes us to Maryland, where September 17th, 1862 became known as the bloodiest single day in American military history. Over 23,000 men were killed, wounded, or went missing in just 12 hours of savage combat. The epicenter of the supernatural activity at Antietam is Sunkeen Farm Road, that forever earned the name Bloody Lane. This road, originally used to separate two farms, became a natural rifle pit for Confederate forces. For 4 hours, Union and Confederate soldiers fired continuously at close range until Confederate lines were finally overrun. When the smoke cleared, bodies were stacked as high in the lane that you could walk across it on the dead without touching the ground. Even the U.S. Department of Transportation has acknowledged the paranormal activity at Bloody Lane, an unusual admission from a federal agency. The most compelling documented encounter involved a group of schoolboys from Baltimore who were visiting the battlefield. As their class toured the site, the boys were allowed to walk freely around the field, adjacent to the sunken road. They were asked to document their impressions for a history assignment. Several boys reported hearing strange sounds coming from the field, voices that became shouts, sounding like a chant or Christmas carol sung in a foreign language. Specifically, they described hearing something that sounded like fa la 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 from the popular Christmas song Deck the Halls. Their teacher, a Civil War expert, was initially puzzled, but then realized the significance. The boys had been standing near the observation tower where the 69th New York Regiment, a famous Irish brigade, had charged the Confederate line. The Irish Brigade was composed of Irish immigrants who fought with incredible valor. They charged the Confederate position repeatedly, shouting their battle cry in Gaelic, Fa abla bala, which means clear the way. The ears unfamiliar with Gaelic, this battle cry would indeed sound like Fa la 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 la. The Irish Brigade lost more than 60% of their men that day. They fought until they ran out of ammunition, then collected cartridges from the dead and wounded to continue fighting. Many were buried hastily in unmarked graves. At nearby Burnside Bridge, visitors report seeing balls of blue light moving around the structure at night, accompanied by the sound of phantom drums playing military cadence that fades into darkness. This bridge was a focal point of intense fighting where many soldiers were buried quickly in unmarked graves. Park rangers have consistently reported an unsettling presence throughout the battlefield. As one ranger explained, I've never seen anything specific, but it's more of a feeling because some terrible things happened here. World War I battlefields present a different kind of haunting. The scale of death was unprecedented. At Verdun alone, almost 300,000 men died in 10 months of fighting. Yet, surprisingly, fewer traditional ghost stories emerge from these battlefields. Instead, visitors report an overwhelming sense of presence. At Verdun, the ossuary near Documont contains the bones of 130,000 unidentified casualties from both sides. Visitors often describe an oppressive atmosphere that seems to press down upon them, the weight of so much death concentrated in one place. Recent paranormal investigations at Fort Freudtier, an abandoned World War I fort at Verdun, documented unusual electromagnetic readings and temperature fluctuations consistent with reported paranormal activity. The fort, bombarded er, mercilessly during the 1916 battle, never fell, but something seems to have remained. The most supernatural encounter from World War I involves the mysterious Angels of Mons. During the British retreat from this Belgium town in August 1914, multiple soldiers reported seeing a ghostly army. Some described angels, others armored cavalrymen, still others phantom English longbows from the Battle of Agincourt, appearing to hold back an advancing German force. While this story was later revealed to have been inspired by a fictional newspaper account, what's remarkable is how many soldiers claimed to have actually witnessed something supernatural during the retreat. The power of belief, combined with extreme stress and exhaustion, created its own reality on the battlefield. More credible are the individual accounts found in soldiers' personal diaries and letters. Canadian historian Tim Cook has uncovered numerous first-hand testimonies of ghostly encounters on the Western Front. One documented case involves a platoon of men heading away from the front lines after days of fighting. Their lieutenant noticed a soldier, Private Rex, lagging behind the group. The officer offered him food, which the man took with icy cold hands. Upon returning to camp, the lieutenant could no longer find Private Rex because, as he learned from another officer, Rex had been killed in action days earlier and had already been buried. Perhaps what makes World War I battlefields different is the sheer scale of trauma. As one researcher noted, daily exposure to sudden death, appalling casualties made servicemen highly superstitious. The magnitude of death may have created something beyond individual hauntings, an atmosphere imprint that visitors still feel today. Our final destination takes us to Scotland. Culloden Moor, site of the last battle fought on British soil. On April 16th, 1746, the Jacobite Rising came to a brutal end when Bonnie Prince Charlie's Highland Army was slaughtered by British government forces in less than 40 minutes. What makes Culloden unique is not just its historical significance, but the immediate and ongoing supernatural activity that has been documented there for nearly 3 centuries. Local residents say that birds will not sing above the burial mounds where the Highland dead lie. The silence is so profound that it creates an oppressive atmosphere that visitors describe as heavy and pressing down upon you. The most frequent reported apparition is that of a tall Highlander wearing features. He appears to visitors wearing tartan and, when approached, quietly says one word: defeated. This ghost has been seen by countless visitors over the centuries, always carrying the same message of sorrow and loss. In 1936, a woman reported lifting a tartan cloth covering one of the grave's mounds, only to discover the apparition of a severely wounded Highlander underneath it, still bearing the wounds that killed him 2 centuries earlier. But it's on the anniversary of the battle, April 16th, that Culloden becomes most active. Witnesses report hearing cries of the wounded and the clash of steel weapons echoing through the moor. Some claim to see the ghostly Highland army rising from their burial mounds to fight the battle once more. One of the most remarkable recent encounters occurred in October 2018 when a tour guide and their guests witnessed an unexplained weather phenomenon. While standing at the memorial on a sunny morning, a mist suddenly rolled in at the pace of a man running. The mist moved along the Jacobite line, following the path marked by blue flags and clan markers. Incredibly, the mist changed directions and began charging diagonally across the battlefield, following the exact same route the Highland Army had taken during their final doomed assault. Witnesses described it as watching hundreds of ghosts literally charging in front of us. Near St. Mary's Well and the Well of the Dead, visitors report encounters with spirits of fallen Highlanders. At the Well of the Dead, where Alexander MacGillivray, chief of the clan Chatton, fell after breaking through the first line of British defense. The very water seems to carry an otherworldly presence. Some visitors have reported hearing a voice in the wind saying, "Put a flower on my wee grave," a request from the Highland dead who lie in unmarked burial mounds, far from their ancestral homes. What makes the Culloden hauntings so powerful is their connection to unresolved trauma. These were not just soldiers who died in battle. They were men who died far from home, buried hastily in mass graves. Their families often never knew their fate. The brutal reprisals that followed the battle, including the systematic destruction of Highland culture, have created spiritual wounds that have never healed. As we've journeyed through these haunted battlefields, a pattern emerges. These aren't random ghost stories. They're concentrated at sites where massive trauma occurred, where death came suddenly and violently to thousands of people. Modern paranormal researchers have theories about why battlefields become hotspots for supernatural activity. Some suggest that intense emotional energy can imprint itself on the landscape, a kind of psychic recording that plays back under certain conditions. Others point to the geological features of many battlefields, rocky areas like Devil's Den at Gettysburg, and the stone formations at many Civil War sites contain high levels of quartz, which some researchers believe can store and replay energetic imprints. What's particularly compelling about battlefield hauntings is their consistency across cultures and time periods. Whether it is the phantom drum beats of Antietam, the charging mists of Culloden, or the helpful spirits of Gettysburg, witnesses report similar phenomenon, sounds of battle, apparitions of soldiers, and overwhelming sense of presence. Park rangers and historians who work at these sites often become believers, not through any single dramatic encounter, but through the accumulation of small, unexplained experiences over time. Perhaps what we're experiencing at these battlefields isn't the presence of individual ghosts, but something larger, the collective trauma of thousands of souls who died before their time, leaving behind an energy that continues to resonate throughout the centuries. As one historian put it, ghosts are history demanding to be remembered. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, these battlefields serve as a powerful reminder of the human cost of war. The stone and monuments tell us the facts and dates, but it's the ghost stories that capture the emotional truths. That the pain and loss explained on these fields was so profound, it transcends death itself. The next time you visit a historical battlefield, take a moment to truly listen. Listen to the wind through the grass, the silence between bird calls, the subtle sound that doesn't quite belong to the modern world. You might just hear the echoes of history and the voices of those who never truly left. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the haunted battlefields of history. Remember, the past is never truly past, especially in places where so many fell so far from home. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your mind alert. You never know what shadows from the past might cross your path.